Hello, everyone, welcome back to the World Conflict Monitor. Please subscribe and like my videos. In this video, we examine the explosive dynamics behind the title Belarus Burns as Russia interferes, Ukraine sees its chance, and dig deep into how the shifting fault lines in Eastern Europe may reshape the conflict. Below is a narrative-driven review/explanation. Style script borrowed from a product review structure adapted to geopolitical analysis, covering exterior, interior, performance, safety, unique selling points, price costs and conclusion. Let's begin. From an exterior viewpoint, the region looks like a geopolitical tinderbox. Belarus, long a reluctant satellite of Moscow, now finds itself caught in the flames of escalating tensions. You see military convoys moving through Minsk's outskirts, troops massed along borders, Russian aircraft using Belarusian airspace, drone and missile launches from Belarusian territory targeting Ukraine. The external facade is of a state under duress, buffeted by forces beyond its control and yet complicit in them. Russia projects power outward, treating Belarus as a forward base. Ukraine watches from just across the border, alert, hopeful and wary. The visual landscape includes Belarusian highways, Russian armored columns, Ukrainian border checkpoints, and battered towns in contested zones. That is the exterior. What the world sees: flames, smoke, armored vehicles, missile trails, blaring sirens, and refugee flows. Now turn inward into the interior. This is where complexity, strain, contradiction, and human cost live. Inside Belarus, the regime of Alexander Lukashenko tries to maintain control through repression, political pressure, propaganda, and fear. The interior is crowded with security services, KGB operatives, intelligence networks, forced conscriptions or checks, and whispered discontent. Ordinary citizens live under the weight of a surveillance state, uncertain of what will come next. Some resist, others acquiesce, many live in fear. The interior also reflects Belarus's economic fragility, dependence on Russia, energy ties, supply constraints, and internal divisions between loyalists and dissenters. The interior extends to the war room, Russian generals coordinating airstrike plans through Belarusian launch pads, Belarusian military liaisons trying to serve dual masters, and Ukrainian intelligence probing vulnerabilities via espionage, satellite imagery, and cross-border reconnaissance. Inside Ukraine's interior, in the border regions especially, communities brace for escalation. Military command centers organize reserves, logistics hubs open, civilians are mobilized or evacuated. Morale, propaganda, local leadership, and civil defense all play parts in the interior struggle. Inside the military structures, there is calculation, risk assessment, supply challenges, human losses. Thus, interior here is thick with people, emotions, friction, and internal contradictions. Turning to performance, how effective is Belarus plus Russia's interference in terms of strategic output, battlefield results, deterrence, disruption, and political leverage? The performance has been mixed. On one hand, Russia gains new launch corridors from Belarusian territory, enabling missile and drone strikes deeper into Ukrainian territory without exposing its own airspace. That gives Moscow additional leverage. Belarus facilitates logistics, overflight permissions, and potentially even troop deployment, tying up Ukrainian forces along northern fronts. On the other hand, the performance falters because Belarus's own military capacity is limited, its domestic morale is weak, internal dissent threatens cohesion, sanctions and international backlash limit resource flows. Ukraine's hopes for counteroffensives hinge on using Belarus's instability, probing weak border defenses, stirring internal revolt in Belarus, cutting supply lines, or exploiting distraction. So, performance is uneven, strategic gains for Russia in some sectors, but high risk and diminishing returns. Now safety features in this metaphorical review structure. Safety features correspond to restraints, safeguards, constraints, or fail. safes built into the strategies. For Belarus, safety features include plausible deniability, officially claiming neutrality or limited cooperation, avoiding overt ground invasion to reduce domestic backlash, keeping Russian troops under Russian command rather than fully integrating them, and hedging by not fully committing militarily so as to preserve some internal autonomy. For Russia, safety features include using Belarus as a buffer zone, deploying standoff weapons missiles, drones rather than mass infantry to minimize losses, controlling escalation thresholds so as not to provoke NATO intervention, and maintaining political narratives. For Ukraine, safety features could include defensive depth, air defenses, intelligence early warning systems, fortifications near the border, alliances with Western partners, and propaganda campaigns to delegitimize Belarus Russia collaboration. These constraints and checks act as safety valves, preventing a full breakdown or spiral into uncontrollable escalation for now. Next, unique selling points. In the usual product review, these would be features that distinguish the item from competitors. Here, the product is the Belarus Russia interference approach. What makes it unique? First, geographic proximity. Belarus shares long borders with Ukraine in the north. Using Belarus gives Russia a direct corridor into northern Ukraine that otherwise would be harder to access. Second, political leverage. Belarus under Lukashenko gives Russia influence over a state, turning it into a satellite or staging ground. Third, surprise potential. Belarus's relative obscurity as a front means attacks from there can catch Ukraine off guard. Fourth, internal pressure channel. Belarus's own discontent can be exploited diplomatically or covertly. Fifth, multi-domain flexibility. Belarus allows combining air, missile, drone, logistics, and intelligence operations in a unified theater. These factors make this interference approach distinct from other fronts, e.g. southern or eastern Ukraine, and allow Russia to stretch Ukraine's resources and attention. As for price cost consequences, trade-offs, this is a high-stakes strategy. For Belarus, cost includes domestic unrest, economic sanctions, reputational damage, and risk of becoming a target itself. For Russia, costs include overextension, risk of escalating war into Belarus, supply lines vulnerable in Belarusian terrain, strain on resources, and possible backlash from Western actors. For Ukraine, cost is lives lost, damage to infrastructure, diversion of forces, and risk of collapse in border regions. There is also international cost, diplomatic isolation, sanctions, energy penalties, global condemnation. The price is steep. If Belarus is fully drawn in, it could suffer direct attacks from Ukraine or NATO, internal revolt, or regime collapse. Russia risks opening a wider front. Ukraine risks being stretched thin. So the price is severe. This is not a low-cost maneuver. Finally, conclusion. This interference gambit is a double-edged sword. Belarus burns under the weight of Russian ambitions. Russia gains additional leverage but takes on new burdens. Ukraine senses its chance to exploit cracks and pressure the northern front. The strategy has strong unique advantages: proximity, surprise, multi-domain leverage, but also steep costs and safety constraints limiting overreach. If Belarus fractures internally, the Russian effort could collapse. Ukraine's countermeasures, resilience, external support, and strategic intelligence will matter greatly. The outcome depends on who makes the next bold move, who can provoke internal dissent, who can endure attrition, and who can shape the narrative. In sum, interference from Belarus is a high-risk, high-reward maneuver in the broader Russia-Ukraine conflict. It amplifies Russia's reach, places Belarus under fire, and gives Ukraine a potential opening. But the cost is heavy, the safety margins thin, and the margin for error small. That is the review/explanation style narrative for Belarus burns as Russia interferes. Ukraine sees its chance. Let me know if you want a shorter version or bullet summary.